What's up guys, it is I, RGT85, and today we have a bit of a follow-up video that I wanted to cover with you guys. So last week on the channel, we of course talked about Nintendo's latest financial report, where we learned about updated things like Nintendo Switch hardware sales, Nintendo Switch software sales, lots of fun information. And then on Sunday, we talked a bit about Nintendo's plans for 2021 when it comes to new things or areas that they can improve upon. Now all of this information was of course based on translated information from David Gibson over on Twitter, basically translating the official Q&A that was done with Nintendo investors during this latest Nintendo investors briefing with President Furukawa. Now, most of these answers were pretty chopped down as far as what was actually in there of substance. David was just translating the bulk of the information that he found interesting. So this video is going to sort of parallel with that video on Sunday, because now we have the officially translated questions that were answered during this event, and there's some new information that I definitely want to go over. I'm not going to try to talk about the same stuff we talked about on Sunday, because all of that stuff is still pertinent and relevant. Make sure you guys check out that video from Sunday if you have not checked it out yet. Check it out after this video, because like I said, the information will vary from this video to that video. But yes, this is the officially translated stuff, and I think it's painting Nintendo in a very interesting position for 2021 when it comes to the current Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch games that we can expect to see this year. So without any further ado, let's talk about this information and see what I could dig up and give my thoughts on what I think about these answers. So the first area we're going to talk about is with the Nintendo Switch hardware itself. Now, obviously on Sunday, we talked about the fact that Nintendo is obviously ramping up production of the Nintendo Switch, which a lot of people find very interesting. In the fiscal year of 2020, Nintendo sold about 20 million Nintendo Switch systems. However, for their report for 2021, they're planning on selling 25 million units in the fiscal year. So obviously something has to be sort of sparking that. And obviously something has to be coming along that would make more people want to buy a Nintendo Switch. But as far as the production of the system itself, President Furukawa actually said some kind of interesting things that almost maybe sort of backpedal on that a bit, which I find very interesting. So he basically said the following: as for production, we achieved steady hardware production through the end of last calendar year. And as a result, in the previous fiscal year, we set a record for our highest fourth quarter sales volume. Meanwhile, demand for hardware continues to exceed our expectations even at the beginning of this calendar year, and production has not currently caught up to this high demand due to the tight supply and demand situation for semiconductor materials worldwide. Although we are currently striving to produce as many units as possible, the fact is that our production plans are more uncertain than they were at the beginning of the previous fiscal years. Our full year sales plans is based on the premise that we can secure the materials necessary for production, but if we are able to produce more units, we will work hard to meet the strong demand and be able to ship and sell those units. Now, this is something that every company is currently dealing with. We talk about it time and time again. Look at the PlayStation 5, look at the Xbox Series X. It has not been easy to get your hands on these systems because of the fact that they're having to manufacture things differently. The whole Suez Canal thing actually impacted Nintendo as well, as that's one of the biggest trade routes in the world because things come over on boats still, you know, that's just kind of how the world works. So when the Suez Canal situation happened, once again, a lot of companies were impacted by that. I know Arcade 1UP was severely impacted by that. Obviously, you have these big boxes for your arcade and pinball machines. So this is something that is going to be very interesting to monitor throughout the year to see how Nintendo is able to procure these semiconductor materials in order to actually make the Nintendo Switch, in order to actually keep up with demand of the system. Of course, you have the whole Nintendo Switch revision that is heavily rumored that many people are expecting to happen this year. What's going to happen with that situation? Will this be impacted by it? I mean, I'm sure it will be in some way, shape, or form because of the fact that, hey, you need these parts in order to make the system. So it's going to be very interesting to monitor this. And, you know, it's kind of weird to say that you want to sell 25 million units in the fiscal year, but then also say that, you know, we might not even be able to make that many units in order to keep up with demand of the system. But you also have to go back to the fact that, well, what's going to drive demand of the system? What always drives demand of systems? That would be either new hardware or new games. And that's a real wild card when it comes to Nintendo for the rest of 2021. What are they going to do in terms of new hardware, if anything? What are they going to do in terms of new games? Right now with the Nintendo Switch, we pretty much have the first half of lineup for 2021 pretty much etched in stone. We know what's coming, we know what to expect, we know what games are going to be coming either before E3 or slightly after E3. But then we get into the wild west situation of what is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch in terms of software, to which President Furukawa said the following: Although the number slightly decreased after the beginning of the calendar year, a lot of customers are playing Nintendo Switch with the recent March release of Capcom's Monster Hunter Rise, so we don't think that the momentum is fading. Many new software titles will be released this fiscal year, starting in the first quarter, which we think will continuously expand the range of customers who play Nintendo Switch, to include those who haven't played a Nintendo Switch in a while or are completely new users. Now, of course, that is a very interesting statement because, well, we all know that new software is going to come. We know that Nintendo is going to be like, okay, well, you know, here's the first half of 2021 and, you know, we'll see you next year. We'll see you in 2022. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that is in the pipeline. But when you look at how Nintendo has been handling business, especially how they handled business in 2020, I really think that's going to be the business model going forward when it comes to announcing new games for the Nintendo Switch. This quick turnaround time that we've been seeing with, instead of, you know, having to wait a year or 2 years or 5 years for a game to come out, you're going to see a game that's going to be premiered. You're going to see a game that's revealed, and then it's going to come out in a couple months. Look at even what Nintendo just did recently with that whole garage simulator thing where you make your own games. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but basically this was announced and it's coming out next month. You saw this, of course, with Super Mario 3D All-Stars last year. It was announced and then it came out a few weeks later. Games like Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, same thing. And it's very interesting that President Furukawa mentioned Monster Hunter Rise in there as well, because Monster Hunter Rise had that same sort of thing. You got to remember, Monster Hunter Rise was talked about, what, first in October of 2020, and then it released in March of 2021 for a AAA third-party game, for a AAA third-party company. You don't see that very often. You usually see this long build-up to the game's release. You usually see this year-plus long build-up and anticipation to where you see so much of the game, you're kind of like, all right, I'm just ready to play this game now. So I think Nintendo likes this new philosophy. I think they like this new strategy. Now, as far as what these games are going to potentially be, I mean, the sky is the limit with this. Of course, you have the whole Legend of Zelda situation that we talked about many a times on this channel. We already have Skyward Sword HD coming. There's heavy rumors that there's going to be other remasters of older Legend of Zelda games. Of course, Breath of the Wild 2, I still definitely feel is on the table potentially for a holiday 2021 release. So that would be very exciting stuff. Yesterday on the channel, we of course explored the potential of Donkey Kong making a big return with a brand new Donkey Kong game. And really, Donkey Kong still has that lineage to him. Like, if you were to make an arcade one-up Donkey Kong machine, I guarantee you it would be one of the best-selling ones because it has that nostalgia factor. And Donkey Kong himself is a pretty iconic character that usually sells pretty decently across Nintendo platforms. So I think a Donkey Kong game revealed at E3 2021 and then comes out in fall of 2021 is definitely something that's on the table. We still have many games like Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4 and Shin Megami Tensei 5 that are also sort of missing in action as well. Could we get updates on them? But once again, I have to go back to the whole new game unveiling and then coming out a few months later. We're seeing it with Mario Golf coming out in the month of June. This game was announced, what, back in February, March, and then all of a sudden, hey, you know, it's coming out in June. So this quick turnaround time is definitely something Nintendo is adapting. And I think it's going to make for a very interesting 2021 because of the fact that there is that mystery. Sure, we're going to learn about a lot of games at E3 2021. Nintendo's probably going to have a large direct where we learn about new third-party games, new first-party games, but I think the whole fact of how Nintendo is doing business, and I think even with third-party companies that are working with Nintendo, with Monster Hunter Rise obviously having that quick turnaround time, it's going to make for a very exciting 2021, and statements like this just make me very excited to see what else is coming out this year. Could we finally see Resident Evil Revelations 3, which is supposedly being done with the RE engine and the Nintendo Switch in mind? Because God, I would love that. Like, Resident Evil 8 was cool, but Resident Evil Revelations games definitely hit with me a little bit differently because it has that more nostalgia and it's in third person, which I definitely prefer. So I would love to see Resident Evil Revelations 3 with a quick turnaround time of potentially 2021 as well as far as the release is concerned. But it's definitely leaving a lot of things open to interpretation, just from the production standpoint of the Nintendo Switch as a system itself. What is going to happen with this as the year progresses? Will they be able to meet up with the demand of this system? Because realistically, a lot of people are expecting this to pass the Nintendo Wii in the fiscal year of 2021 in sales. And I feel like as long as Nintendo can keep up production of it, they are going to meet those expectations and supersede them beyond their probably wildest expectations. And then of course we have the whole games thing. What is in the pipeline with these games? Many games are coming, but what are they? So it's just kind of fun to speculate about this stuff. Now that we're getting into E3 season, I'm definitely ready to talk about E3 stuff. I'm definitely ready for all of these announcements from all companies, not just Nintendo, but from Sega, from Microsoft, whatever Sony's doing with their State of Play stuff. It's one of the most exciting times to be a video game fan, and this is the sort of stuff that's leading up to it. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all of this. Do you think Nintendo is going to run into any manufacturing issues with this, or do you think that they have a little bit of a surplus of systems ready to be shipped out? But if we get to that point, what will Nintendo do in order to keep up with the production of the Nintendo Switch, in order to keep people happy? And the games. What games are you expecting to see in 2021? Do you think there will be other surprises, like maybe a Mario Kart 9, which I don't think that's happening anytime soon. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out other videos on the channel. Like I said, I did a good job of not talking about the same stuff I talked about on Sunday, so check out that video from Sunday as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.